Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. You can catch this podcast on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and if you are enjoying the content, or please follow me on Spotify. I tell you what a last few days it's been as a Manly fan. To lose on Thursday to the Roosters was really disappointing. And then Friday, Siebes gets sacked. I'm watching the Tigers and Warriors game, and at halftime, it's announced that he's been sacked. And then yesterday morning on Saturday, Kieran Foran is now the interim head coach of the club. I find it a bizarre last sort of 72 hours to be a Manly fan. I'm also really proud of the club, to be honest. Obviously, in hindsight, you'd probably think, okay, would have been better to sack Seibold at the end of last year. Uh, to a degree, I can understand why they gave him extra time. The Cherry Evans thing would have been hard for any coach to deal with. But yeah, I think if they're three away games, I don't think they pull the pin on Siebes. I think because they were three games at home, sold out crowds, one game coming back from a bye, so you had extra time to prepare to beat the Roosters. I can understand the decision. And, I sat here on this podcast in the preseason saying, when I was previewing Manly's season, saying that I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a long year for Manly and that I think Anthony Seibold will end up getting sacked. I didn't think it would be this soon. But I'm proud of the club for taking the initiative, because most clubs in the NRL wait halfway through the season, or they wait towards the end of the season. And the fact now that, they've put in Kieran Foran, which I was really proud of the club for making that decision. They could have easily have gone to the other assistant coaches, such as Brett Camorley, who's been an interim before for the West Tigers. He's also coached the women's team for the West Tigers. Or they could have easily gone Jim Dimmick, who's been the defensive coach for Manly since 2023. But he's been an interim coach, I'm pretty sure, for the Bulldogs before, the team he used to play for many, many years ago, part of that 1995 premiership winning squad. Personally, I'm glad they just went, no, you know what, we're going to pick a coach that, look, he hasn't got much experience as a head coach, but we're going to pick a player that these players will play for, and we know that they'll play for him. My prediction at the start of the year was Manly will finish bottom four. I don't think we'll get the spoon. I just have a gut feeling we won't get the spoon. I feel that with Kieran Foran as head coach, the boys will lift. And he will. I think the thing about Kieran Foran too, like, he reminds me of Benji Marshall. And when Benji first became head coach of the Tigers, and that whole Tim Sheens thing came out that Benji will replace Sheens, straight away I thought, oh God, like, he hasn't had much experience. But if you see what Benji's done overall, he's actually proved me wrong and a lot of people wrong. He's actually done a pretty decent job. Considering the lack of experience he had in assistant coaching. I don't think he had any experience apart from that time he had behind Tim Sheens. But one thing I heard Benji say at the back end of his career is he spoke about how for the final 5-6 years of his career, he felt like a coach anyway. He was about to retire at the end of 2016 until Wayne Bennett caught him at the Brisbane Broncos in 2017 for a lifeline deal, really. Like, his career was, no one wanted him. Benji and Wayne, they've had a friendship for many, many years. They've been close friends, and they touched base. And of course, they had a great relationship from the 2008 World Cup that they won. They beat Australia at Suncorp Stadium. And I think it's really, really good what Benji has done. So Benji, he probably won't win a comp as a coach within the next few years, unless of a miracle, with respect to Tigers fans. But I say the same for Manly. Manly probably won't win the comp in the next few years, unless of a miracle. But what the Tigers and Manly are doing, I like. They're putting a player in there that will be a coach in there that has been a player for 16, 17 years in the NRL. And they know that they will attract players, these players. Look at the players that Foz has played with over the last few years. Like he's played with some great players, and he's got a relationship with many, many great players in the NRL. He's also probably in the top three most respected players in the game. A lot of players from other clubs look up to Kieran Foran. So in terms of him possibly signing players before the June 30 deadline and making some switches to certain players or early releases, who knows what's going to happen? But I think that the fact that Manly picked a player that um, is now going to be a coach, but they picked a coach who was a player who played at the club, who won a premiership. But more important than that, um, he's for me, I think he's going to be a really, really good man manager, Kieran Foran. Like, look at the challenges he had to deal with moving to Parramatta under $1 million a year, and then he went through his mental health stuff. He left the game. He quit the game through 2016. Came back in 2017. Played for the Warriors. Got an early release because he missed his kids back at home. Goes to the Dogs 2018, 2019, 2020. Signs with Manly under Desi again 21, 22, 23 to 25. He plays for the Gold Coast Titans. Debuted back in '09. Like he's experienced. He's had challenges. Injury after injury from about 2015 to 2020. Through that period, he had injury after injury. And I remember looking at Facebook comments in 2018, 2019 saying he's going to hang up the boots now. And he ended up playing for another 7-8 years in the NRL. And you've got to admire his competitive nature. And, even just hearing Kieran Foran at the press conference, it made me think, shit, man, I want to play for this guy. Like I'm not even a first grade football player, never have been, never will be. But I could assure you now that he gave me goosebumps just listening to him, and the passion he had when he was talking about coaching Manly and how they've asked him to do a job and he's gonna owe it to the club to do that job and fulfill it. I'm really excited as a Manly fan. Now, I'm also realistic as a Manly fan as well. Like, I don't want to sit here and say, oh, we're going to win the comp in the next few years. I mean, I look at the balance of this roster. It's out of control, the lack of depth we have in the forward. So for me personally, I think it's going to take about 3 to 5 years to properly rebuild this roster, um, and get it towards being a consistent football side again. Um, you know, I'm actually blown away by some of the positions and players that have been picked in certain positions in the opening 3 rounds, and I'm pretty confident as a Manly fan that Kieran won't make the same mistakes. Um, you know, what do you do with Brooks? Well, personally, I'd put him on the bench, or I wouldn't play him at all. I know that sounds harsh, but you have an opportunity now to make sure there needs to be standards, and even though Siebes for me is a champion of a guy. He seems like a really good guy, treats the media well, treats people around him well. He seems like a really, really good guy, but sometimes I just could not understand his way of coaching in terms of team selections and whatnot. And there's no doubt that he knows more than most people in rugby league. He's very technical. He knows the game inside out, but reports were that he had some communication problems where it wasn't sort of relating to the players. And, I wish Siebes all the best, and I genuinely mean that. And I think he went into the job in 2023 with the right intention to try and do his best for the club. It just didn't work out. And personally, I think he's maybe like an Adam O'Brien, where it's, he had a good stint, but maybe you are just better off as an assistant coach or going back to rugby union. I'm not sure, but I genuinely do wish him all the best. But as a Manly fan, I am extremely, extremely excited that Kieran Foran has been named as interim coach. One thing I think Foz will do as well is I think he will pick players based on, standards. So I think Foz is going to say, you need to meet these standards. And if you don't meet the standards, see you later. And I think that's what Foz was all about. He had standards in his career. And I think he will bring out naturally a very competitive nature within the players. And, he's going to bring that Manly mentality now. And it's quite unique, right, with Manly. You look, they've been in 20 grand finals in 80 years. They've won 8. And all the coaches that have won those 8 premierships have played for Manly. They've been Manly men. So really interesting to see with Foz. It's interesting to say, I'm seeing a lot of reports of who's going to take over Foz at the end of the year. Brad Arthur, Jason Demetrio, Matt Ballin. For me, watching that press conference closely yesterday, I think it could easily be Kieran Foran who stays as head coach. And I hope that that happens. I got the sense that Jason King and Scott Penn weren't just thinking, oh, Foz will do for now. You know, they use the word interim because they have to. But I think that they really want to give Foz every opportunity to prove himself and for them to say, you know what, you've done a decent job here. You're going to be the coach from now on. I'm not convinced that they're going to look for other options. I'm convinced that they're going to take their time and see how Foz goes as a head coach. And, you know, I think they'll be more looking closely at not so much results, but looking closely at team selection, standards, improvement, especially in defence, in attitude. So there's going to be a lot to look at from the club. Jason King, Scott Penn. You know, I think it's an exciting time for Manly. And even though I think they're going to have a really poor year, unfortunately, and it breaks my heart to say that, I even said that back in February when I did the season preview. I said I think Manly will come bottom 4. I think I could see them anywhere from sort of, you know, 14th, 15th, around there. Personally, I don't think we'll get the spoon. I just think we've got too many key players in the side, like and experienced players, like, you know, Turbo. You know, Garrick, for me, he hasn't been in form, but he has been around now for, you know, 8-9 years now at the Manly Seagulls. He's been around. Lehigh Hopewadi's a gun. Fogarty, I rate Fogarty as a half. You know, he's the halfback of a minor premiership winning side. You know, Olakawatu, Paseka, you know, Jakey. Look, at the end of the day, Jake, I think, brings more to the team from a spiritual level now than he does a physical level. That makes sense. So Jake talking to the team, he's almost like a second coach himself. So just having Jake around any club would be very rewarding, without a doubt. And I think Foz will respect Jake in terms of, don't play him in the middle at 13 for 70 minutes, 65, 70 minutes. Put him at prop and play him for 40, 45 minutes and coach the team properly. Coach the players for what they deserve, and the criticism that Jake is getting, I can understand it to a degree. He's not the player he was, but for journos to come out and call his retirement, you know, I find that for someone that's bled for the club, I just think, you know, that's up to him, and he should be under no pressure to do that. I think he's one of the players in the NRL that has totally earned the right to call it a day when he sees fit for what he's done for this club. Not just on the field since 2013 when he made his debut, but off the field. How he's brought this club together through bad times and what he does for the junior rugby league. Jake deserves a retirement at his decision. I think that's the least the club can do. And rugby league fans in general. I understand he's not the player he was at all. I totally get that. He's just nowhere near it. But at the end of the day, he brings that Manly mentality. He knows the DNA of Manly. Jake's the only bloke from 2013 left in that side, and that was a grand final team. And, you know, I understand he only played one game that year, and it was his debut, round 26, against the Panthers at Brookvale. And that was actually also Clint Gutherson's debut match, believe it or not. But he's played with Mad-Eye, Brett Stewart. He's played with those Manly legends, and there's a Manly legend. You know, Jake will be a life membership. He's already a Manly legend. He has been for many, many years. But I think, you know, you've got Joey Walsh now. I've got no doubt he'll start playing consistent football in the NRL under Foz, which will be the right decision. And I'm in the minority, guys. Hey, like, I'm more, you know, people will say, oh yeah, well, they're not quite ready. Well, fuck me, like, was Nathan Cleary ready at 18? Like, who knows? Like, I love Kieran Foran's answer yesterday when they said, "Are you ready to be a head coach?" And he didn't bullshit. He said, "Oh, well, you never really know if you're ready. You just get in there, you say yes, and you take on the challenge." And to me, that was a great thing to say. It was a truthful, honest response, and I think, look, I'm not. I don't sit here as a Manly fan thinking we're going to make the eight this year or whatnot. But what I expect as a Manly fan is consistency, and and what I expect is a side that will make the finals every year. I don't expect premierships every year, but I have, and Manly fans have high standards because we are a very successful club in terms of the history. We're the only club since the 1970s has won a premiership every decade. And I know you could sit here and argue that, well, you probably won't in the 2020s. We probably won't, but it's a pretty good start. In 80 years, we've never won a wooden spoon. That's a fucking great start. Well, 77, 78 years if you take out the Northern Eagles. Um, that's pretty good. You look at Parramatta, they've won 14, you know. So, like, it's pretty impressive stuff. So this club has standards, but what I'm saying is the standards need to get higher, bigger. We need to be a consistent football side again. And when I talk about when I used to watch Manly in the mid 2000s, 2010s, you sit there and you think, I knew that if Manly were going to lose, they were going to do everything they could to win, and they'd leave nothing out there, nothing left in the tank. I was so proud of my team every week, and we didn't win every week, but we won most weeks. But even in losses, as a fan, you knew that you were going to be really proud of them and how close they got and the effort that they showed. They played for the jersey, So for me, that's really, really important. Really important to see that again. And I think, whether you're a Parramatta fan, a Gold Coast Titans fan, a Dragons fan, whoever you are, I think everyone and every NRL fan would agree with me when I say that all you expect from your club is to be consistent, have high standards, and play for the jersey. Play for the players that have worn the jersey in the past. Play for the community, play for the fans, play for the members, play for themselves, play for each other, play for their coaches. You expect consistency. That's what you expect. And what I respect from the top clubs, such as Penrith and Melbourne, and I guess you could say Brisbane to a degree, but if you look at Penrith and Melbourne over the last 7 years, they've been consistent. And I respect that as a rugby league fan because I remember how consistent Manly were, you know. And I think consistency is something that needs to be. You don't need to consistently win games. You need to consistently be proud of your side. And that's what Foz needs to bring to the team. He needs to bring that Manly DNA of, we're going to go to Redcliffe on Thursday night, where everyone's going to write us off. Personally, I've got huge doubts over Manly winning Thursday night. But I know that they've got it in them to do it. I know that they've got it in them to turn it around under Kieran Foran. Thursday night, I'm going to get a glass of wine and I'm going to sip it slowly before the game, take a few deep breaths because it's going to be a good game of football. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season now. I mean, you know, stranger things have happened. I remember after round 4, I was saying to my good mate Liam Finlayson at the Brookvale pub, it was a Friday night game, Penrith versus Manly. And I was sitting there having a beer with him and I said, mate, I genuinely think Manly could get the fucking spoon here in 2021. And he looked at me, he said, don't be a fucking idiot. And I remember that really clearly. He said, we don't do spoons, mate. We don't do spoons. And all of a sudden we turned around and we got to the prelim under Tom Trbojevich's great performances. But I understand Tom will get the raps and deservedly so. But I also remember so many other players playing their best football of their careers as well. Saab, Garrick, I haven't seen them play as good since 2021. And fuck me, even Brad Parker, Morgan Harper, these kind of players were really good, really consistent, and that Manly DNA, that Manly mentality was back that year and we found it. So stranger things have happened. If someone told me after round 4, 2021 that we were going to be in a prelim, I would have told them that they were drunk and go home. seriously, it was amazing to be a part of that. And I don't think we'll make a prelim this year. I don't think we'll make finals this year. But as a Manly fan, I genuinely am really excited for what's to come. And I think what we're going to see now is I think under Foz we'll win a few more games than what we would have under Siebes. But also I think we're going to see effort, consistency within effort. And I think we're going to see a team that's going to play for their coach and play for their coach for 80 minutes. And as a Manly fan, at the moment, considering how out of whack our roster is, our lack of proper balance within the side, I just think we've got too many outside backs and not enough forwards. So our balance isn't right. But basically, I thought I don't normally do a podcast on a Sunday, but I thought, you know what, it's been a big 72 hours. I'm going to do one and talk about Manly, and I'm really excited. I hope Foz brings in Simeone Laifi, I think his name is. I apologise. I think that he was great when he made his debut for the Roosters last week. That charge off the kickoff, fuck, that's what you want. That's what you need, and that's what Manly will fucking have. And I reckon this year, I don't think we'll win many games, but I reckon now we're going to start seeing a team that will play for their coach, and I'm really excited for that. I really am. And as a Manly fan, I don't sit here every week and bullshit and say they're going to win every game, and very rarely do I tip them if I think they're going to lose. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited. And I'm Manly's harshest critic because I love the club more than anything. But also, I'm really excited. I am really excited moving forward. I think as a Manly fan, you've got to sit there and go, well, we haven't had too much to cheer about over the last few years. The last fucking 72 hours have been great. And I'm really excited for the year ahead. Just to, I think Manly fans will know. Like, they'll know. And what I mean by that is when they start playing that Manly brand of football, playing mentally tough football, then the fans will know what Foreign has already brought to the club. And I'm really looking forward to it. So Sunday afternoon, football this afternoon, we've got the Sharks and the Raiders at Canberra. Come on, Raiders. Fuck, I hope they win that. And then we've got the Titans and the Dragons. That's going to be really, really difficult. So, fuck, I think maybe Gold Coast win that. Who knows? It's so hard. Moses Suli's been ruled out, and so have the Cashman brothers. So, don't know. Ryan Couchman out for 4 weeks, I think. That's going to be a tough one. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe or follow the Rugby League Forecast podcast if you haven't done so already. Please ignore my shitty haircut. I should have kept my little mullet. Actually, no, it just didn't suit me. Neither does this haircut, though. Anyway, I was going to wear a hat. I thought, fuck it, I can't find a hat at the moment. I think my son's stolen them all. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers. Go Manly. Woo!